So about a month ago, I got myself a EVGA. It's the GeForce RTX 3080 Ti. It's the XC3 version. It's a fantastic card. Tons of reviews on it, so you guys could definitely go check that out. Been enjoying the card, playing 4K settings, most to all my games. And I recently got into Horizon Zero Dawn. I know it was a port from the PlayStation 4, and I enjoyed it on the PlayStation 4, but I never got to finish it because you had to have the Pro version, or the game just ran a little laggy. So when they went to PC, I was able to pick it up, and I've enjoyed playing the game. Want to beat it, but when I use my computer, it gets a little loud. That it does. So typically when I buy a video card, I usually like to go for the higher end versions of it. The higher end version for this would be the For the Win 3, and usually because number one, you do get slightly better clocks on it, but the coolers are way beefier and they tend to be quieter. Or I would go for like the Asus Strix version. That would actually be pretty sweet. But today's market, you just get what you can. So I'm running Furmark to kind of illustrate the sound and the effects I'm getting when I'm running Horizon Zero Dawn, because when I'm sitting in my living room, I don't use headsets. It sounds like a jet engine, and it gets quite agitating, especially when the old missus is around and she's trying to read a book and my computer's distracting her. But anyways, so I've been running this test for about 20 minutes, and our GPU is at 78 degrees, sometimes 79 degrees Celsius, 100% usage. Core clocks are between 1815 to 1830. And yeah, that's about where we're at. And typically that's around the same temperatures I'm getting when I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm running this because, well, I don't feel like playing the game for 20 minutes right now, just to show what it's doing. Now, the XC3 cooler does a good job of cooling this graphics card. I mean, it will not go above that. The game runs stable. It's solid on that one. But the biggest issue is the noise. You know, I like a quiet experience. So over here, I'm getting a little scientifical lately, and I bought myself one of these decibel meters. So now, average sound decibel for a living room is about 30 to 40 decibels. Anything above 70 is actually considered unsafe. And 30 to 40 is supposed to be a comfortable living room setting. So let's see where we're at. And we'll kind of do it like a before and after. Okay, so using the sound meter on the back with the fans, they're about 60 decibels. Pretty much the ambient sound around here is about 55 decibels. So I want to see if we could get that better. The temperature is at 79 degrees Celsius. So we have our baseline, and I want to see how we can improve it. So this is what I decided to do. Got on the old interweb, looked it up, and I don't want to go with a custom water cooling loop because, I mean, the upfront cost is very expensive, and yeah, I ain't got that type of money over here. So I went on EVGA's website, and they actually make a hybrid cooler that you can adapt to these cards over here. They're about $110, and they claim to boast better cooling, quieter graphics card usage, and I want to see how good they are. So this is what we got: the EVGA, and it's upside down, hybrid cooling XC3. Alright, and this is what you get. So pretty much what we're doing is that we're converting this from an air cooler to a 240 millimeter AIO. This works for the 3080, the 3080 Ti, and the 3090. Now, you could get the hybrid version, which pretty much this comes with installed, the For the Win 3, but we'll talk about value proposition and if it's worth it in the end. So let me go ahead, let's switch cameras. We've already notated our temperatures. Let's go to the bench camera, take the card out, and let's install it and see if, number one, is it easy to do, and number two, was it worth it? Alright, so we already went ahead and started taking this thing apart. So pretty much back plate comes off first. Take off all the screws over here. And then I went ahead and took off the retention bracket, which is 4. And I took the IO plate screws, which is 3 over here. And I think this thing should separate. Alright, that just required a lot extra force than I was accustomed to. But that did it. So just wiggle it off, and it just broke the mess out of these thermal pads. Alright. But these things did mess up these pads, but it's okay because this new cooler does have these new thermal pads, so we should be fine. Let's open this up. Let's open this up. Thermal paste right there. Okay, so pretty much going through the instructions, what we're going to need to do first is remove all these thermal pads and thermal paste. I wanted to make sure that before I took anything off that I didn't have to reuse any of these, but this kit comes with all new thermal pads, so we could just take all these off nice and easy. Alright, that's better. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some rubbing alcohol and some Q-tips and just rub these out. So it took a lot of cleaning. So the biggest advice I can give for doing this is, number one, a business card works really great for getting in those crevices and kind of getting in between the memory chips and everything like that. Isopropyl alcohol, a light brush, and Q-tips, and that gets this thing looking pretty clean. Now, do you probably have to go as thorough as I did? Probably not, but considering this thing cost a pretty penny, I'd rather do it right. So let's move this right over here, and let's take our attention to the pump. So now the instructions, they're there. They're there to say the least, but they could be a little more clearer. So looking at the instructions, apparently we want to sit this piece right over here, which is the pump, and just kind of have it in place loosely. Also take over the cover for the thermal paste on it. And then you have this cover piece right over here, which uses these two little screws. There's two of them, the M2s, and they're called the tube screws. So apparently we're going to put one, and this is kind of hard to get on camera because these tubes are like everywhere. And of course I'm touching the thermal paste. That's great. We'll fix that. But apparently what you're going to do is you're going to put this in like that, slide this in right over here, and then use these screws, because there's only two of them, and one of them will go right over here to kind of help, well, to hold it in place. So let's kind of put that in right there. I don't know how well I'm going to capture this, but there we go. Let's get our screw. Alright, so we're going to get that screw in right over here and try to screw that. Now, there is the cable for the fans, the 4 pins, and there's a little slot, which I'll show you in just a second. There's actually a little slot right over here, and you want to make sure, you see where that 4 pin comes out? You want to make sure that kind of fits in there. It's kind of tight tolerance fit to it, so yeah. Alright, I should keep that in place. So yeah, you can see it right over here. This 4 pin comes right out of that channel, so just kind of line that up. Alright, so now that that's done, the next thing that we want to do is take off this plate. Alright, so we're just going to kind of sit this in place right over here. Let's take off these, and these, and this should be your last step. And I think what I'm going to do is, because I really jacked this up and contaminated. I've already smeared it, so I am concerned that that might not work as efficient. So I think I'm just going to wipe this off. And usually I like to use my own thermal paste anyways, but at least using theirs would have been a little cleaner, a little more consistent. So, but that's what you get for not being mindful of what you're touching. I'm just going to wipe this off. For thermal paste, I'm going to be using the Kingpin, the KPX one. I've been using this a lot lately, and it's actually pretty fantastic in my opinion. So I'm just going to go ahead and just like so. Same thing with this one. And then for our whole RGB action, the same thing. Now you can't mix these up in the sense that there's only one way for them to go. Alright, so once you put that in, you're kind of committed, so here goes nothing. Just hoping everything is sitting properly. So let's go ahead and take these off. Try to line them up as so. Alright, so now the next ones we got to tighten be this one, apparently these two. No, it'd be these two right here. So this one, and then one in the corner over here. So alright, those are in. So now we could go ahead and install the GPU backplate, which goes right over here. Alright, so now that that's done, let's go ahead, let's pop in the backplate over here. So now if you have the RTX 3090, the XC3, over here you would reuse the thermal pads and pop them right over here. But we don't have it with this one, so we don't have to worry about that one. And another side note is you're not reusing this retention bracket for it, so you just put that in the box. Well, that's cleaned up, and that's pretty much how it looks. So now we get the fun part of mounting into this case. So let's go ahead and switch cameras and try to get this in this case. So off camera, I went ahead and tried to mock this thing up, and that was quite entertaining. So I had two 140s in the front, but because of the space and this big Be Quiet cooler, I had to change them and use this over here. This is actually not an ideal setup in my opinion because these fans run at 0 decibel mode and this thing runs cool. So I'm actually warming this thing up, doing the stress test on it, trying to do a 20-minute load, and this thing has been already running for about 2 minutes and it's already at 61 degrees Celsius. It's actually warmer in the garage right now, but prior to this the fans would be ramping up and this thing was running real loud and it would hit 80 within the 2 minutes initially starting. So let me go ahead, put the panel on, show you guys what the noise difference is, and then we'll talk about my opinions and my thoughts and what I think about this. It's been over 20 minutes. Actually, it's been 49 minutes because I actually walked away and forgot about this thing. My temperature on this is, if you take a look at this, 58 degrees Celsius. And this thing is closed up in this case. I'm using the front as to take in fresh air. And the setup I have right here is not ideal, but I will work on that later on. The other thing to note is before we were sitting at about 1800 to 1815 with my core clocks. I'm at 1890, 1875. Yeah, pretty awesome. Fan speeds 44%, which is awesome considering that before we were at 75 to 100% fan speed. So considering I paid $100 for this, it is well worth it, and this thing is silent. Now let's take a look at the sound decibels. Looking at the decibel meter, we're sitting at 48 decibels. We've gained 10 decibels less, which makes this thing way more pleasing to the ear. We were about 47 sitting right back over here, so this is definitely an ideal experience. Now we're using the fur mark, and the fur mark is an extreme torture test on this, so I can imagine that when I sit back and play my game Horizon Zero Dawn, I'm going to get a way more enjoyable experience. Not to mention that my core clocks are higher than it was before, and I haven't even overclocked this thing. So considering that we're at 60 degrees Celsius, I still have plenty of headroom to put an extra overclock, but then it kind of defeats the purpose of making this quiet, but I digress. But either way, we've lowered our temperatures 20 degrees Celsius, which is phenomenal. So now, price to performance. Let's just think about this for a second. And this is using EVGA's website to kind of give you an idea of how much you're looking to spend. So now the XC3 in itself is $1209. Now, if you could get it for that price. The cooler is about $110. So for $1310, you get it with the cooler and you're going to get the better clocks. Now, you can buy the XC3 with the hybrid cooler, and you're going to spend $1429, or if you just want to go with the For the Win 3, you get $1429. But honestly, I think the better bang to go buck for it to go is get the 30 Ti XC3, use the water cooler for it. As long as you're comfortable with it, you'll be fine, as long as you're comfortable doing the installation. Now, to recap on the installation, the instructions could have been more clear, just kind of giving you a little more idea of which screws that we needed to use on it. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. Now, one variable I will say is I did change the thermal paste because I did touch it with my thumb, so I don't know if that kingpin is a factor and give me those great temperatures, but I imagine that the thermal paste could be negligible in this. So guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see what we come up with next.